Hello, everyone, and welcome along to this live webinar. And today, the topic of this webinar is making tax digital. And we have a great guest today, Kevin Sefton from Untied, with all the details, all the things that you need to know about making tax digital, and also how to use the integration between Landlord and Untied. So basically, from your Landlord account, you will be able to file your tax returns in a quarterly basis and basically be compliant with MTD. Let me share the agenda for today. One second. Can you see the screen?
Yeah, can see it.
Okay, so we'll start with a quick introduction. Perhaps, Kevin, you can introduce yourself quickly. And then we have Simi, our director of buy-to-let mortgages. So she will give you a 5-minute market update. This is something we start to do in our webinars just to keep people posted with the recent changes in the market. Then Kevin will provide you with a quick overview about making tax digital, what you need to know, what are the rules, what you need to prepare, how you need to prepare to that. Then we will do a quick demo on how you're setting up your cash flow on Landlord, and then how you use the integration with Untied to file your tax return. This will be the MTD submission process. And then we'll have time for question and answers. As always, we have an exclusive offer this webinar, 50% of our premium plan, which Ksenia will share on the chat how you can apply these discounts. Simi, before we start with the market update, Kevin, perhaps you can introduce yourself briefly, and we'll take it from there.
Yeah, thanks so much, Avram, and it's very nice to be here again with another Lendlord webinar. So it's 11 days before the filing deadline for tax returns for the 24-25 tax year. I'm assuming that everyone on this call has done their tax return for that year. If you haven't, put in the chat as well, because I'll make sure that I cover a little bit about what you need to know for that. But we have worked with Lendlord and Lendlord users for 4 or 5 years now, Avaram, and it's really great to be back again talking about tax, and we'll cover what's needed for the tax deadline and MTD.
Amazing. So now we will do like a 5 minutes overview, market updates, and also on the mortgage side of the market. Simi, over to you, and you
Yeah.
can share the deck.
Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us today. So, as Avram mentioned, my name is Simi, and I'm the Director of Buy-to-Let Mortgages at Lendlord Finance, which is the broker arm of Lendlord. So, some good news to start. Conditions in the buy-to-let mortgage market are slowly improving since the mini budget, but the environment is still very different from pre-2022. So, the Bank of England base rate now sits at 3.75%, following a cut at the end of 2025 in December. As a result, buy-to-let fixed rates have edged down, with many 2 and 5 year fixed rates now starting with a 3 or a 4 rather than a 5 or 6, which is very welcome. That said, rates remain higher than landlords were used to a few years ago, particularly for limited company mortgages. Fees and costs still remain quite high. In terms of the economy, so the UK economy is expected to see modest growth this year, with inflation easing compared to recent highs and monetary policy becoming gradually more supportive. However, the key theme here is caution. Policymakers remain alert to both domestic and global pressures, meaning the path for interest rates is unlikely to be smooth or guaranteed. For the mortgage market, this does mean opportunity, but also the need for flexibility. Interest rates are influenced by a combination of economic data, global events, and market confidence. Several key risks could affect the pace or direction of rate movements. Inflation still remains the most single important factor for interest rates. If inflation continues to fall steadily, it will strengthen the case for further base rate cuts this year. Ongoing or escalating global conflicts will also have a direct and immediate impact on expectations for interest rates. War can disrupt energy supplies, pushing up oil and gas prices, as we've seen with the Ukraine war. So, what does this kind of mean? Events outside the UK will influence UK mortgage pricing. A slowdown or recession in major economies could reduce global demand and lower inflation. But to summarize, mortgage rates don't just follow base rate expectations, they also respond to global market sentiment. So, assuming inflation continues to ease and no major shocks occur, mortgage rates are expected to trend gradually lower but not fall sharply. Lenders may compete more aggressively through product innovation and pricing tweaks, and fixed rates are likely to adjust in stages, reflecting swap rate movements rather than base rate cuts alone. This reinforces the importance of timing and advice, especially for remortgage clients. So, still very uncertain, but it's a lot more positive than we saw, a couple of years ago. So, it's all very welcome.
Simi, are you sharing the deck, by the way? Like if you had slides.
No, I'm so sorry. No, I'm actually not.
Okay, no worries.
There we go. Can you see that now?
It's loading. It's still loading.
Sorry, let me try and start it again. Can you see that now?
No, not yet. Um, mm, okay, so perhaps you can speak about it and perhaps you can send it to me. I will try to present it from my deck.
Yeah,
All right, we can see it now. We see it now.
yeah, perfect. What I was also going to cover a little bit today is about Lendlord Finance. So, if you're a user of Lendlord but you haven't yet used Lendlord Finance, I'll give you a little bit of an overview on how we're part of the app. So, when Lendlord was set up, one of the
It's not,
co-founders
by the
has
way,
been,
the deck is not showing right now.
it's not showing.
Perhaps you can, no, we can see the screen. Perhaps don't do it in a present mode. Just show the deck. Perhaps it will work. Okay, so perhaps we can give up on the deck, but perhaps you can just speak about landlord finance.
Yes, sorry. So, as I mentioned, so when Lendlord was set up, one of our co-founders has been a broker for like 30 years. So he would do all of the mortgages for our users. But since then, Lendlord's grown significantly, and that's why we set up Lendlord Finance. So we are an intermediary slash broker. We're not a lender, whereas Lendlord, the app, has a different feature where you can actually get bridging funding directly from Lendlord. So that's the main difference between Lendlord and Lendlord Finance is that we're an intermediary, but Lendlord does the funding themselves. Just to mention as well, for Lendlord bridging at the moment, we do have a valuation promotion. So I'd recommend taking advantage of that saving because it's a free valuation for bridging applications. So back to Lendlord Finance and how we can help landlords. So we're a specialist broker with our focus being predominantly on the buy-to-let market. We can advise on residential mortgages, but the majority of cases that we'll work on are buy-to-let, and a lot of them are limited company mortgages, which we've seen a lot of landlords moving towards for tax purposes. In terms of how we're set up, we belong to a mortgage club by Legal and General. That gives us access to most of the lenders on the market. So, your kind of specialist lenders, niche building societies, your high street banks, and we've got direct contacts with all the lenders we work with, meaning if we need assistance during the underwriting process, it's available to us. So, what makes Lendlord different to other brokers is our expertise in the buy-to-let market. Most brokers will advise on residential and buy-to-let cases, but our niche really is buy-to-let mortgages. So, we know lender criteria inside out, how lenders want cases packaged, essentially just making it a lot smoother for you. So the interesting part about what Lendlord is doing differently is that users of Lendlord can apply for mortgages via the digital mortgage application tool. So you have live visibility of the available rates that I see as a broker through our sourcing system, which means when lenders rates update, you can also see their updates as well. And when you apply online digitally, you'll get your mortgage illustration, usually within 24 hours, unless we need additional information. And then if you're happy to go ahead, you can upload documents directly to your application. Avram's just showing what it will look like for a user when they're looking to find a mortgage. The digital process allows you to track your mortgage from the initial inquiry stage right the way to completion, receiving updates and online messages from us. And it doesn't stop there. Once your mortgage has completed, if it's on your portfolio, you'll receive updates and notifications when your fixed rate is expiring to secure you a new rate 3 to 6 months prior to your fixed rate ending. Another feature I just wanted to touch upon is how Lendlord are using tech and are way ahead of the game in terms of mortgages. So I read quite an interesting article where around 28% of brokers said that their business priority for this year is to invest in technology. But a lot of this was aimed at lead generation, client retention, and advisor productivity. But Lendlord are doing something very different in the tech space. We're using tech to digitalize what is usually a very archaic process. The way in which the world has moved towards digitalization in most capacities from in-app banking to Apple Pay, we don't think mortgages should be left behind. They should be evolving and easily accessible. So we've got the digital application function, and then you can also book a call directly with me or Leon, our other advisor, as well to schedule a call and see what options are available to you. All the links will be in the chat as well.
Amazing. Thanks, Simi. And I think Ksenia put the link tree link where you can schedule calls with Simi. And also, if you're looking for a bridging finance, we are running a promotion of free valuation by the end of January. So you can also apply from the system or schedule a call. Thanks, Simi. And now,
Thank you so much.
thank you. And of course, if you have questions, book a call with Simi.
Yes.
Amazing. Okay.
Thank you so much.
So, making tax digital. Kevin, are you here? Yeah. Okay.
Yes, I'm here. So what I'm going to do is, before we talk about making tax digital, just very quickly, I can see that there are a couple of people who haven't yet filed your self-assessment for 24-25. I strongly suggest that you do it. And a reminder that you can be sending your data to HMRC from Lendlord via Untied, and then it will go to HMRC under self-assessment. There are previous videos where we've gone through that in quite a lot of detail. Ask any questions in the Q&A that you've got later. But you want to be making sure that something is filed, and you can always file an amendment afterwards. So if you've missed something off and you remember it afterwards, then you can just submit an amendment and you've got time to do that. But you don't want to be missing the deadline and then building up compliance things. Another thing just to be aware of is that the deadline of the 31st of January is not just the submission deadline, it's also the payment deadline. And it's the payment deadline for two things. The first payment deadline is any extra tax that you owe for the 24-25 tax year. So that is when it does all the calculation and it says this much tax is due. And if you haven't paid payments on accounts, that will be the total amount of tax due. But if you've made payments on accounts, that will be taken off whatever is due. You need to do that calculation for yourself, but that tax is due by the 31st of January. The other amount that's also due by the 31st of January is your first payment on account for the 2025-26 tax year. That's the tax year that we're in at the moment. So the way that works is HMRC work out the amount of tax due for 24-25 in total. They halve it, and that is your payment on account for the first payment, which is due by the 31st of January, and the second payment on account for 25-26, which is due by the 31st of July. You can speak to HMRC to reduce your payments on account. If you do, and it ends up that the tax due is more than you're actually paying, then there will be more interest to pay. If you work out a payment on account and you actually expect your tax bill to be much higher, it doesn't matter. Your payment on account still stay exactly the same. So I hope that covers what's needed for the 24-25 tax year. If you've got questions, we've got Q&A time later. So moving on to making tax digital.
Yep.
I've been here talking about this for a long time, but it's really happening now. From the 6th of April, 864,000 people will be required to be filing under Making Tax Digital. So what do you need to know? Well, the first thing is once you are in and you need to be signing up for MTD, it's not automatic that HMRC sign you up, but we as Untied and Landlord can sign you up, and that's a really important thing. We can do that sign up for you. But once you're signed up, you need to be submitting in-year updates for your property income and foreign property income, and if you have it, self-employment income, and that needs to go at least 4 times a year. There are deadlines and timings. They're sometimes called quarterly updates, but we don't submit quarter 1, quarter 2, quarter 3, quarter 4. The way that it works is we need to be filing, and the way that Lendlord and Untied manage this is we submit your year-to-date figures after the end of the first quarter, your year-to-date figures after the end of the second quarter, the third quarter, and the final quarter. Only your self-employment and property income needs to be submitted this way. At the end of the year, having done the fourth quarter, you then still need to do a tax return. That tax return can be filed using Untied. In fact, you have to use software. You can't log into HMRC to do your tax return anymore once you're in MTD. You need to be using software. So between Lendlord and Untied, we facilitate this and we support all your other income sources. Things like employment and pension income are brought from HMRC. Other things like dividends, interest, and so on can be added. And it's only this final tax return that has the legal status of the statutory declaration that we have currently as a tax return, saying it's all correct. So your in-year updates, the way that I describe it, is that I might say, well, look, I live somewhere in London. I'm not saying that I live in 34 High Road, Tooting. I live in London, which is a broad approximate area. And that's all that's needed in terms of the level of detail for the quarterly updates. And if I'm slightly out, I'm in Essex, Hertfordshire, Buckinghamshire, it doesn't make any difference. All of that is roughly within the range that is acceptable. Don't be tempted, though, to submit 3 zeros, then everything in the final quarter, and don't divide last year's numbers by 4 and say, look, we'll do it that way. However, a couple of things that you do want to know. There are no penalties, although you have to do it. It's kind of a weird sort of zone. There are no penalties for late submission of your in-year updates for the 25-26 tax year, which we're in at the moment. I'll come on to that in a moment. Or the 26-27 tax year, where most people are going to be mandated. And the threshold for that mandation is if your combined income from self-employment and property is over £50,000, and that threshold becomes 30,000 from April 2027 and 20,000 by April 2028. But the core of this is not about reporting. It's switching your data from one old HMRC system into a new one. So if we imagine your record is moving from the old system into the new one at HMRC. And that's why I'm going to come on to something which we've touched on before and where our position has changed entirely over the course of the last year. And that is the idea of coming in voluntarily and coming in early. 12 months ago, I said it was not a good idea because things weren't working at HMRC. But that's now changed. And I think there's a lot of benefit in choosing to come into Making Tax Digital early, including and especially in the 2025-26 tax year, which is nearly over. If you do come in now, you can do one in-year quarterly update, which covers everything up to date. So don't worry about the time that you're coming in. But the main advantage of coming in early is we can check that your record has properly mapped from the old HMRC system into the new. Now, you don't want to be in the middle of the queue of 864,000 people calling HMRC in April. So that's why we can actually do that now. And particularly if you were doing that in the 25-26 year, so the current tax year, then we are making sure not only that your records have moved across, but that submissions can go through. So if there are problems, you can sit back knowing that it's HMRC that needs to sort it and that your record has already migrated across. So that, I hope, is a bit of an introduction as to why you might want to come in early. Some of the questions that we regularly get from this group, and we'll look at some of the data that Ksenia is going to be looking at as well, is around adjustments that you can make at the end of the year and that sort of thing. So if you have, for instance, some adjustments that you need to make because fees have been taken off by agents, or there's more information that comes through, you can just keep making them all the way through up to submitting your tax return. And as we heard before, actually, you can do amendments after submitting a tax return. Don't worry about including all of that in the quarterly update. And I also want to touch on joint property. So if you have jointly held property, there is some relaxation on the obligations that you have. This is so long as one person is properly keeping digital records, the other joint property owners can simply manually enter in the total of their income and expenses as appropriate. There's even more of a relaxation, which is that the expenses can be done once a year, as long as you're doing the income once a quarter. There are different ways that you can manage that, but effectively you don't necessarily need that because all the data is held anyway within Lendlord. We'll see later that you can turn on in Untied auto submit, so that manages that process anyway of automatically submitting your data, so you're not going to get any penalties. But we are here to make it as easy as possible. And what we're going to be showing you, Aviram, I hope it's okay to say that we're going to be making this really streamlined over the course of the next few months.
Exactly. Yeah. So now basically we have the existing flow/process that we used to have with Untied, which allow you to file your tax returns electronically with this integration. But I think already now you can start submitting quarterly with MTD. Having said that, as Kevin mentioned, we are working on streamlining the process, so it will be much more easy to understand and to file your MTD on a quarterly basis. Kevin, a question in terms of dates. So if it's live in April, when is the first, what is the first date actually lenders should actually do the first quarterly submission?
So you can make submissions any day or time of the year. The advantage of, if you want to do that, you can do that. You'll then get a tax calculation from HMRC and how things are going, and you can always do that. The first quarter runs from the 6th of April for 3 months to the 5th of July. You can then submit up to that point at any point up until the 7th of August to be within the deadline effectively. So you're really looking in that scenario between the 5th of July, at the end of the period, the next day, first thing in the morning at the 6th of July, you'll then be able to submit for that first quarter, and you have until the 7th of August in order to do that. So that's the obligation. I should also talk about the data that is going to HMRC. All they get is they get the totals of your income and expenses. If your income from property is more than £90,000, then the expenses need to be analysed and mapped to HMRC categories. If that applies to you, contact us because we need to do some custom mapping for you. But so long as your income from property isn't over £90,000, all we're doing is reporting the total income and total expenses for the year to date. They don't get individual transactions. They don't get copy of any evidence. You don't have to keep the evidence in a digital form. You can keep that in whatever form you want, whether it is paper, in your email, in your iCloud, it doesn't really matter. Obviously, you still need to keep evidence, but the requirements of that haven't changed. Payment deadlines have also not changed. There are suggestions that HMRC might be looking at that in the future, but that's always something that they are considering. And for the key time that we're concerned about now, the payment deadlines are exactly the same, the 31st of January and the 31st of July. Penalties, though, have changed. And on the one hand, they have got a lot easier to manage. So they are moving towards a points-based system, a little bit like in the UK, we have driving license points. You rack up points, you start to then get penalties when you rack up points, and you can rack up points for late quarterly updates from 2027, 28, this year and next year, no penalties for that. But on the other hand, the one thing that has changed and has got tighter really in terms of penalties is late payments are now going to be subject to tighter penalties. You want to be aware of that. And finally, just before I hand over to Ksenia for a little bit of a demo, the payment that is due if you are in Making Tax Digital, just for us on the call, the MTD, if you are in MTD, the payments due are split only now 2 different places in HMRC. So it may indicate that no payment is due, but actually there is a payment due. We've got a help article on our website about that. Contact us or Lendlord and we'll make sure that that happens, but we should be sending that out to anyone who is in MTD just to make you aware of that. I think an email would have gone a few weeks ago. I hope that covered stuff. Was that too fast, too slow, too much, too little? Ksenia, do you want to now show it working, and then we'll come to the questions?
Yeah, I think, yeah, first, thanks, Kevin, for the comprehensive overview. Yeah, if you have questions, guys, put it on the chat. Yeah, now let's do like a quick demo. I will start with the Landlord part, and then we'll show you basically the integration with Untied, and we'll hand over it to Kevin. So let me share the screen. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Perfect. Okay. All right. So on your Landlord account, basically we'll focus on the manage section here. So you have the page My Portfolio. This is the place to first add all of your existing properties, your buy-to-lets, but you can also add your main residence. You can do it by clicking on Add Property, or you can also upload a spreadsheet if you maintain one. We have different sections of details. We keep more than 150 different data items on each property. The good thing is that there are no mandatory fields, so you can start with some information and then tweak and add more information as you go. So the first step is to add your first property. I'm doing it quickly. It's not like training on how to use Landlord. I would just want to take it to the tax returns section. But if you want to hear more, you can schedule a call with our team or use the chat box or go to our YouTube channel to get more information. So after I define the property, I will go to my tenants and I will create a new tenant. When I create a tenant, I also create a tenancy that attached to this tenant. I can put the contact detail, the property that this tenant is attached to, the tenancy period, and also, of course, the rent payment. When I create a new tenant, the platform will create for me the payment schedule. So this is for this month, but I can choose for basically a period of time like this financial year, let's say. So you can see also the future payments, and then you can be on top of your rent collection and see the payments that are being made by your tenants. Then in terms of accounting, we have the accounting section. So here on bank transactions, you can link your bank accounts with our integration with open banking. We use Plaid for that. It's regulated by the FCA company to implement open banking, and Landlord is an agent of Plaid. The connection is secured, and we only get read access to your bank account. So the way to add bank account is click on Add Bank Account, link your bank account. Then you will get a list of, I think, almost all UK banks. Select your bank. Then it will redirect you to the bank website to enter your credentials. And again, we don't have any access to your credentials. We don't store them. We just basically you do it on the website of the bank, and then you connect the bank. It will get back to Landlord. And then for the first setup, you can retrieve transactions manually. But after this point, the platform will retrieve for you every 24 hours. I think actually now it's even live. So every time that basically the platform identify a new transaction, you will receive it to your bank account, to your Landlord account. Then just if you want to allocate the history of transactions, you can choose an historical date. Then click Retrieve some transactions, and you will get the first transactions to section of transactions to allocate. I selected perhaps the 2025. Okay, let me do it again. 1 second. Start date. Let's see now. Okay. I will do it quickly again. I will select a more recent period. 1 second. I want to show you the wizard that you will receive every time that you log into the platform with the new transactions, and then you can see the transaction description. You can categorize this transaction. This is a testing account, of course. You can also allocate it to a property. If you manage your properties on a company, you can attach it to a company. And then when you have a received payment, let me see if I have here something. No. So once you get not a spent transaction, but a received transaction, you can also allocate it to the relevant tenant. Then after you allocate the transactions, and you will see all the reconciled transaction in the reconciled tab. Then on the reports page, you will see your income and expenses. I haven't tracked, but I will go to this account. You can see the income and the expenses for this account. Now, when it's time to file your tax return or to file the MTD, as Kevin mentioned, we are going to streamline the process, so it will be a different tab just for MTD. So we'll see all the previous submissions, when you need to submit the next returns, and then it will more guide you on the process. But now what you can do is just to click on File Your Tax Return. Ksenia, if you want, you can open your mic, because basically this is, let me see if this is your account. No, I will switch to your account. So I will go to the reports section. Let's do, so Kevin, here, by the way, I can choose basically last quarter, or I can basically select specific times, I believe.
Yeah. So shall I take it from here then?
Yeah. Take, and I will just show how from Landlord I can go to Untied, yeah?
Yeah.
So,
So that's what you're going to do. So what I'm going to need you to do, click on that.
yeah.
Clearly what we need to do here is making sure that we are identifying which categories are containing your mortgage interest, which is treated differently. This actually only needs to be included once a year, but it's fine to do it on a in-year basis, and then click proceed. And on this page, you want to be selecting the entire current year. So we're used to doing taxes involving the last year, but now with making tax digital, we're doing the current year. Select the owner and include the relevant share of expenses across the whole portfolio. So if you do this for, and you tick the box at the bottom, we're going to do this for Ksenia.
Click proceed.
And hit proceed. And then I can take over from here if that works for you. So what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be sharing exactly the same screen that we've just seen. And I'll make sure that I'm bringing in the numbers with the same account. And then we'll take it from there. So I want to make sure that I'm sharing.
Not yet. Let me see. Yep. It's loading.
Okay. Right, you should now just be seeing something which says, welcome back, check your email to continue. Is that where you are?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, a bit of a hack. If you go back and you go forward and you've set a password with Untied, as I know that Ksenia has done, you can enter the password in here. So this is now logged into Ksenia's account, her Untied account, and we've got the national insurance number and the UTR, the unique taxpayer reference, included in here. when we bring data from Lendlord to Untied, we normally bring the entire year. Now, midway through a year, just for now, this is going to be improving. You just need to turn this toggle on in order to make sure we're bringing it in up to today's date. And then when you're happy with that, tap on import and continue. That will then bring those transactions into Untied, and you can now see them coming in, and we'll see what the total is. So I'm going to close the menu on the left just so we've got more space. So you can see year to date, we've got 51,000 of income and 12,000 of expenses. If you have other income, if you're self-employed, you can link your bank accounts and manage that from within Untied. And you will also, at the end of the year, be able to manage other income sources. Our job now is to get this to HMRC. Well, to do that, what we're going to do is we're going to log into HMRC. It's a one-time process in order to authorize the software. And then having authorized the software, we can then always be exchanging the data. So you only need to do this once. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to go to the Making Tax Digital tab. It will then ask me to connect to HMRC. And that is opening up in a tab, which I'm now going to share with you, where I can log into HMRC using my my credentials for my government gateway account. Now, we don't get these credentials at all. I need to be absolutely clear, we don't get these credentials. But effectively, a little bit like the open banking, there is an exchange of a token, and then we use the token in order to exchange the data with HMRC. So I'm going to give a consent here. I'm going to enter my user ID for my government gateway account. This is a dummy account that I have from HMRC, so don't worry, I'm not revealing highly confidential information. And I'm also now going to put my password in here as well. The first time you do this, you may be asked to identify yourself a little bit more to HMRC. They have various levels of identity confidence in the government gateway account, and the first time you may need to increase that. But then having done that, we're linked to HMRC and we can see my obligations. We'll do one quarterly update and we'll see a couple of things. These are my income sources. I happen to have UK property, self-employment, and foreign property. You'll note that I can turn auto submit on, and that's quite a good way just to make sure that your data is always going, you're hitting the deadlines. I'm in the correct tax year and I'm just going to hit submit. This is the data that we have just seen Aviram put into Lendlord, and it's coming in, including the finance cost. And when I submit, the data will go to HMRC. What we've got on this screen is dummy data from HMRC, so it won't have refreshed, but that's basically the process that you have. So you can see it's the same data, but you have a complicated tax calculation at the bottom. That's from HMRC. Your employment information is brought from them. You've got other income that you may have as appropriate, your gift aid and so on, and all of that is in here. And at the end of the year, you just tap on this tab and you can submit your tax return. The key thing is to make sure that you're in MTD, and perhaps we should do a separate session for a smaller group for those people who want to come in to make sure that they're properly onboarded. We use quite a lot of permissions, and I want to make sure that we go through what those permissions are. I'm going to stop there, and I think probably everyone, we should now go to the questions. Does that work for you?
Yes, absolutely. We have, I think, several questions on the chat. So just let's take them perhaps one by one.
Okay, right. So I'm going to come back. So Tony's asked, when can you sign up? You can sign up now. And as you noted, I'm suggesting that you do sign up now. I'm also strongly suggesting that we do that sign up for you as part of our relationship, because there are a few toggles in HMRC systems that we see every day. And in particular, there have been issues with property income not coming through from existing HMRC systems. So we need to make sure that we navigate that properly. And I think that there's another user who's noted that they have just over £20,000 in terms of the property portfolio. You're welcome to come in now. You don't need to. There are no penalties in Making Tax Digital if you are in voluntarily. Anyway, so if you sign up now and you don't need to be into 2028, all that's happening is your record has moved across and we'll be filing using the new system. I'm going to just give a little bit of a warning though. HMRC may still not be very good at separating out whether you do have the obligations or not. So you may still get letters which look more scary than they actually are. But there are no penalties. We've had that confirmed by HMRC if you are choosing to come in early. We also have been asked about company taxes. Now, I want to just touch on that. We are not supporting company taxes, but the way that company taxes are being filed is changing as well. There's been lots of conversations. I've had lots of meetings with HMRC about it. I might come back to that, but we'll get this sorted. But for the time being, we're not doing the company filings, but we may well come back to that. But that is changing. HMRC wanted to change the format of the company filings. They're removing their own service. It's quite a changing space. And we've learned that if you try and move too fast in the changing space, we've been live with Making Tax Digital for over 5 years, waiting for this moment. It actually doesn't help anyone. So just giving you a little bit of a warning about that. Now, I can also see there's a question about payment on accounts. The untied calculation doesn't take them into account, and some of the HMRC calculations don't take them into account. That's frustrating. It's really annoying that you know you've paid and we don't. And sometimes HMRC don't take that into account. We have asked them repeatedly, and they're working on a way to give us access to that data. But for the time being, I'm afraid it's a disappointing message. You're going to have to log into HMRC to see what they're sharing around that. So I hope that covers that. Yes, Mark, you've asked about the advanced tagging for those earning more than £90,000. I'll show you that in a brief moment. We've got all that ready. It's working. And we can deploy that for you. Some of these things need to be deployed after you've been signed up for MTD, so I'll probably arrange a separate conversation. We can get that into working. Does the tax return function take into account employed earnings? Yes, you always have to be including your employment income. If you are in Making Tax Digital, that comes from HMRC. If you are not in Making Tax Digital, you can either add it manually or we have another mechanism to bring that from HMRC. Someone's asked about tied, but I don't know if that was meant to be untied. But yes, we have everything that can go straight to HMRC as streamlined as possible. You've asked about Lendlord's data, but I also want to talk about Untied's data. So we are very strict. I'm sure Lendlord's exactly the same in terms of how we maintain and manage the data. Everything is hosted securely, encrypted. Team members don't have direct access to Untied data unless they are in a certain role, and then we manage that. Each submission is year to date. So if the first quarter has ended, you do a submission, it meets that obligation. If by the time you do it, the second quarter has ended, it meets the first quarter and the second quarter obligation. So it's always year to date. And that's why ticking that little box in Lendlord, when we did the submission to say, use the current date and always do the current year, it will bring the whole year across and we will then deal with that. Don't split the mortgage payment directly into interest and capital. You might want to work out how to do that within Lendlord, but it may not be possible. You may need to actually wait for the statement from the bank in order to do that. And I wouldn't suggest you come in for the 24-25 submission. That has changed. So the way that people were in for 24-25 and doing the end of year process is completely rewritten for 25-26. So don't come in for 24-25. You can't come in if that's it. There is questions about it's included, premium plan, all good. How can a newbie with 1 or 2 properties? Maybe what I'll do is a custom small group webinar, Aviram. I'll send you the details for people who are in Lendlord. Got another question about Tied Bank. Don't know. Do you need to do these for
rent to rent?
Sorry?
Yeah, the question is about rent to rent properties, if you need to do the quarterly accounting. So basically, it falls into if you are self-employed that manage a rent to rent business, and you generate income out of it, and you don't know it as a company, I think you still need to report the income and expenses of this business. Rent to rent, basically, you don't own the property, you just.
Yeah. So if you rent it and then rent it to somebody else,
Right, yes.
yes, because you still have property income and you have property expenses. So the answer is yes, but that's as an individual, not as a company. And then Mark is asking, can you exclude some categories from the reporting? I'm going to leave you to answer that. My suggestion for those on the call is that we normally do small group onboarding calls, maybe sort of between 2 and 6 people normally. And that might be a good idea if we send that out. If we think that's a good idea, can we have some indication of thumbs up, thumbs down from the chat or whatever the equivalent is that Zoom does?
One or two. I think that people will struggle with emojis. So one, if you are interested. Okay, they have the emoji. Okay. Yeah, you have a group of
Okay, that's good. Right. Oh, lots of ones. Okay, that's great. So if you're using your limited company, limited companies are not subject to making tax digital. This is just for individuals. So I want to be really, really clear in repeating that. What are my views on making tax digital and how it affects people? I have thought that it has been over-engineered, more complicated than it needs to be, and all sorts of things. I've been quite open about that. However, long term, HMRC needed to move their system from an old database to a new one. And we are already seeing benefits of the new database, where we are, for instance, people who have not previously been in self-assessment for self-employment, they've just had it for property. To sign you up in the past to self-employment was really quite complicated, involved more forms. Now we can do it in just a few clicks. And not only does it do that with HMRC, it also does it with Department for Work and Pensions for national insurance purposes. And that's quite a step forward. So I'm really quite excited where this will go. There will be a lot of press about obligations, about lots of tax returns and things. Work with it, don't fight it. So turn on auto submit. We'll be integrating with Lendlord to bring the data across a lot more smoothly. So we can go from there. So I hope that's good. If you have an accountant, we can give your accountant access to Untied as well. And if you have an accountant, you still need software to be filing for making tax digital. So you can't avoid that. You're not allowed to rekey data. So
By the way,
that's one of the things
one thing
that we
about,
do.
like, if you want to invite your accountant, we do have now, if you go to the right top menu, team members. So we actually developed a very enhanced roles and permissions module. So you can invite people to your Landlord account, and you can actually customize the permission, like if you want editor or viewer, but then for each section of the platform, if you want to give them access as a viewer or the editor. So if you go to the manage, perhaps I want to give them access to my portfolio as viewer, but not to my documents, for instance, or perhaps to the mileage tracker as an editor, and of course to the reports on the accounting or the bank transactions. So you can actually customize the permissions you give to your accountant or third party that you want to invite to your account. So this is something that, yeah, already have this user, but this is something that is now available. So you can invite team members and you can invite third parties that might be interested to log into your account with set of permissions. And before, like, if I already took over quickly, I just want to show like the promotion of today for premium plan. If you are not on the premium plan, you will need the premium plan to for the making tax digital and the electronic filing. But of course, you can get so many features with the premium plan. So go to the settings page, and then on the plan details, click upgrade. Then on enter coupon code, put panel 26, and click apply, and you will get both premium plans with 50% off. So highly recommended. You can do it now. Another thing we have on bridging finance products now in the platform, products with free valuation. If you submit your application by the end of January. So it's a fully digital application to receive heads of terms. We also we have products to fund the refurbishment as well. So you can get up to 90% of the purchase price, 75% of market value, but also you can get funding for the refurbishment based on the GDV. So try it out if you need bridging finance. And of course, as Simi mentioned, if you are looking for a digital mortgage, you can search live rates on the finance section, and you can also apply online to get your mortgage illustration online. Yeah. So Kevin, over to you. I don't know if we have any other questions, and we can summarize, I believe.
Yeah, thank you. I think it's really good. How are we going to coordinate it? We'll make sure that we send it out through Lendlord. It will be, I think, Mark, I think you've been on possibly one of these already, but it'd be basically looking at that. We also do drop-in sessions as well for people in Making Tax Digital. I think, Tony, you're very ambitious, and where do I see things going beyond MTD? MTD, my first meeting was in 2016, so I'm just quite happy that this is actually going live. And bearing in mind, it's a 3-year program before all these people come on. I think what we're going to see, though, afterwards is more auto-population of tax returns. There's a global initiative which Making Tax Digital, it doesn't directly align with, but it's something that HMRC have signed up to called Tax Admin 3.0. So what that means really is that tax should be happening where people are doing business rather than as a separate exercise to be submitting things to a tax authority. We see this all the time with something like VAT, where we buy things in the shop. The tax is collected by the shop, not by the tax authority. Everything is managed through the till software. And that's really sort of the direction of travel for things. So you might see more early tax. We'll have to see. The key thing for HMRC, and I think for the government in terms of tax administration, is making sure that Making Tax Digital works, that the records can be relied upon, and that the data is what you'd expect. So that's really sort of where we are. Mark, you asked about these tags for the over 90,000. Now, in order to do that, there is a custom tag section within Untied. So that is where that will be, but everything needs to be mapped to a Making Tax Digital business. We can do that. It's all there. Untied is probably ahead of other things that you might see in the market, and I would say don't be. You'll see lots of things saying, "Oh, we can do this, we could do that, we could do the other with Making Tax Digital." Don't be encouraged to go to something that doesn't meet your needs. So you're going to need to have something that supports all of your income sources, and really that's where we've set out to do. And in terms of the market as a whole, there are lots of things that do single income sources, but together we're doing something that covers everything. So do we do tax returns and accounting for landlords? We don't do the accounting. We're a software company and we don't give advice, but hopefully integrated with Lendlord, most of your data will be brought across. If you do need bookkeepers, we can manage that. I realize we've said a lot. I hope that's been helpful. Everyone's gone quiet, but I had lots of ones before, so we'll sort all of that out.
Yeah, we will set up a session for the group that are more interested in more details. Yeah, okay. So thanks, Kevin, for joining, and thanks everyone. We will be in touch for sure. First, we will keep you posted on the updates of the software that will be, as we mentioned, more streamlined to MTD. And of course, we will do these sessions. Perhaps we can do it more frequently for a group of people that actually need to get prepared to MTD together with Kevin and the Untied team. So thanks, everyone. Thanks, Kevin. And we will see you in the next webinar, I believe.
Really nice to see you, and thanks very much, everyone.
Thanks, everyone. By the way, the recording will be on our YouTube channel. So go now to YouTube, search for Landlord, subscribe to the channel to get all relevant content, not just about MTD. We do many more things on the software. So feel free to subscribe, and you have the discount code for the premium on the chat. Thanks, everyone, and have a great rest of the day.